Right.
Yeah,
Good
I think we
morning.
can start.
Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Wherever you are logging in from. Welcome to the What's New in MapStore webinar today. We have folks from headquarters in Italy, as well as myself. I'm Ryan Burley, the United States Business Development Representative covering North America. And today we'll be covering, again, what's new in MapStore. Next slide, please. As a brief background, GeoSolutions was founded in 2006. We have offices, headquarters in Italy, as well as US office in New York. Our core products are GeoServer, MapStore, GeoNode, and GeoNetwork. Of course, they will be focusing on MapStore. Our packaged offers, basically our offerings, are enterprise support services at various levels of consulting and prepackaged support minutes. We have deployment subscription, custom solutions, as well as professional training. Next slide, please. We have over 200 clients, or we've had over 200 clients globally, mostly focused in Europe and North America. However, you can tell from the map that we've done work all over the world in a variety of different use cases for a variety of different government and non-government clients, including the UN, World Bank, NATO, etc. And on the private side, a lot of global observation satellite companies such as Maxar, MDA, etc. And we've basically done work across multiple industries globally, which if you can hit the next slide, please. Which means that there are it's rare that we'll come across something that's extremely new when it comes to working in open source GIS or setting up GeoServer or MapStore. There are a lot of different configurations that we've worked within across these industries. And what that means is that you have a high level of expertise within GeoSolutions. We are comprised of the core contributors for GeoServer, MapStore, GeoNode, etc. So essentially what that means is the code that gets put into these open source products, our guys, a majority of the time are the developers responsible for integrating that code. And you'll see here that, whether it's smart cities, government, defense, mid-ocean, space observation, whatever your use case might be, there's a good chance that we've dabbled or supported that industry and those types of workflows. And we're always looking to support new applications or new challenges in the open source side, and always available to field calls or questions related to open source configuration and setup, etc. Next slide, please. We are members of OSGeo as well as OGC. We are also members of United States Geospatial Intelligence Foundation. And on the OGC side, we actively participate in OGC working groups. For example, the test bed working groups to develop new standards or expand standards into new applications. We actively participate in that. And then we support open source. Obviously, OSGeo is the core of what we do. And you'll see us involved in events globally supporting OSGeo and the open source community. Next slide, please. So with that, I would like to introduce Alessandro Cristofori, Tobia De Pisa, and Stefano Bovio of GeoSolutions, and they will walk you through what's new in MapStore. Gents, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Alessandro Cristofori. I'm a tech support lead in GeoSolutions. And before taking you to the new features that the version 2022 would introduce, I'm taking you a brief tour of the main characteristics and features of MapStore. MapStore is an application, is a product. It is ready for you to download, and it can be installed on your server or it can be used locally. MapStore as an application comes with some level of customization, especially in its look and feel. When we refer to this type of use of MapStore, we refer it as MapStore as a product. MapStore isn't just a product. MapStore is a framework. So using MapStore as a framework allows a more extensive and fine level of customizations. In fact, it's possible to create your own custom applications using the core plugins that MapStore has, but you can also develop your own ones and you can plug them seamlessly into MapStore. MapStore as a framework doesn't just customize look and feel, but it just customizes its main core and functionality. MapStore is a web GIS application and framework. It allows you to create and share maps, charts, dashboards, and stories online. It has modern application characteristics, such as the use of React.js as the main front-end engine, supports mobile, and is responsive to various layouts and screen sizes. MapStore tools, as well as their application look and feel, can customize, as we said before. Most importantly, it can consume geospatial and non-geospatial data from many sources. Of course, the OGC standards are all compliant, as Ryan said earlier, and it benefits from a BSD license, which means that it is commercial friendly. So this is a list of just a few of the most, let's say, some of the customers that have MapStore. MapStore with these customers is used in various ways. As explained before, some of these customers use MapStore as a product, some other customers use them as a framework, but MapStore can also be used as totally integrated into other bigger applications that will use the entire framework and encapsulating MapStore into itself. Examples are GeoNode, which is another product that GeoSolutions supports and can be integrated with MapStore, and GeoExtra, which is a custom product that one of our customer built up on MapStore. So we already have some questions. Tobia, do you want to say to the audience what how the question time is going to be?
I think the questions is at the end, so you can continue and proceed with the presentation. So the question and answer is at the end.
Okay. Right. So now let's go into detail about some of our customers. How do they use MapStore, and provide some examples. MapStand, for example, is one of our clients that works with in the energy resources field. They use MapStore as a platform for tracking energy activities. These customers applies a wide range of styling customizations, and as well as different backends plugged into MapStore. Another example here is the City of Brussels. City of Brussels uses mostly a standard MapStore with just a few styles and customizations, and also using we developed for them some custom plugins. So the one that you see in this example is the Google Street View plugin. Interestingly, this plugin was originally developed for them, and then it became part of the stock plugins of the offer with the product MapStore. So you find already these plugins when you download MapStore from us. Another example here is Austro Control. Austro Control is an air navigation service provider operating in Austria. They uses basically the main product functionalities, and they just do like very little styles customizations. Then we have the Arno River Basin Authority. Arno is a river in central Italy. This example, for example, we can see that this customer uses MapStore as it is. So they basically use the products. They don't have customizations, and they provide their services without applying any sort of change to the main framework, and it works really well for them. Another example of a public sector client is the City of Genova. So here we can say that the look and feel isn't really changed. from the MapStore products. But what is interesting here to point out is that they enrich, let's say, the offerings of MapStore, including some custom HTML pages. And most importantly, they plugged it in their own authentication and authorization system. So this is a request which is quite common with our public sector clients, because, you know, as they are governmental bodies, they have their own authorization and authentication methods. MapStore can host them and plug them into the framework. There is something that we have done in this last upgrade that I'm going to talk about later on. And Genova is just another example of these custom authorization authentication systems that we implemented in MapStore. Right, so let's carry on talking about the main MapStore features. We're going to illustrate some of the general features and those that you may get out of the box, downloading MapStore from the repo, from the official GeoSolutions repo. So what's central in the concept of how MapStore works is the concept of resources and content. MapStore is a content management system specialized in geospatial content. User can create, share, and browse various types of contents. Let's go to see which are the types of contents that MapStore can manage one by one. So main contents are classified as maps, contexts, dashboards, and GeoStory. Each type of content has its own specific tools that allow to explore data and interact with them. Let's focus on maps. Maps are the resources of more immediate understanding for those that are and aren't in the GIS field, along with the usual management of background and foreground layers that you would normally see in any other WebGIS engine. MapStore offers many other tools, for example, to explore multidimensional data, for example, data that holds information about time or holds information about elevation. We'll see that we have done some work on the upgrade on that later on. MapStore can combine geographical data with the attributes of these geographical data, creating widgets. So it is also possible to analyze statistically some of the attributes, that data that you would display in the map. It is possible to compare two types of maps with the swipe tool, as you can see in here, for a more immediate comparison, to a more quick comparison. It is possible to measure. It's possible to measure distances. It's possible to measure areas, angles, and so on. User can annotate their maps and create temporary layers in which they can place pinpoints, texts, and so on to create their notes on the maps that aren't real layers but are related just to that map. And also, MapStore offers the possibility of operating directly on the styles of the layers from the front end. So it offers a visual stylus where a user can change actually how the layer would look like directly from the map without passing by the backend door, for example, for GeoServer. Second type of content that MapStore can offer are dashboards. Dashboards, we can use widgets, which we already had seen previously in the maps. But with dashboards view, we have the possibility to include multiple maps, multiple widgets, and have them connected together. So what's important to say about dashboard is that the focus here isn't just on the maps, as you would normally have in the map resources, but we want to highlight more the attributes of the geographical data. So it is possible to select them. It is possible to create charts for them, various types of charts. It is possible to group them. It is possible to make, as I said before, statistical analysis on those. So just a quick example of how a dashboard would look like. So this is just a test one. we can see we have a map widget here. We've got a few bar charts widgets here down the bottom, and we have like a table widget here and a legend widget. So as you can see, the map is connected to the other widgets. Whenever I zoom the map or I move it, the other widgets are responsive to what is visible on the map. So for example, here I've grouped by the sub-region, and we are talking about the population and how the population distributes across the various US sub-regions that are mountain, Pacific. And here we've got the list of the states that are currently on focus on the map. So yeah, these are just a flavor of what Dashboard can do, but you can do also many other more complex things with those. This is just a simple example. Right, so GeoStories is the third type of content and resource that you can manage in MapStore. They provide the ability to create scrollable multimedia contents combining images, videos, interactive maps, galleries, and so on. So it's a way of basically creating compelling presentations using maps, but not just maps, but also types of media. As we can see in this example, this is just an example that creates the list of highest astronomical observatories, and you can see that it's actually possible to use pinpoints on the map, change, and the map would focus according to the carousel component is called, where you can group photos and texts. And if you've seen that in the previous rolling, there was the possibility to add a video that you can reference, for example, from YouTube or any other video provider resources available online. Okay, finally, the fourth type of resource that is possible to create and manage in MapStore are contexts. Contexts allow the creation of customized map viewers with a selected set of plugins that are configured according to client settings. So contents can be created by MapStore administrators, and once they are created, they can share map viewers that they can use on the basis of the targeted or expected audience. So we can create contexts that hold just a map and no other and a layer that are fixed and no other tools, for example, that can be directed to general public that we don't want really to meddle with other tools in the map. We just want them to see a map with a layer on and nothing else. We may want to create context that will generate map viewers that will just hold just a set of tools, and we could also create some context that would create map viewers with some set that are specialized to some targeted audience. I'm thinking, for example, surveyors. They may need some of the measurement tools that maybe are not needed for other specialized users of MapStore. So I've got an example here as well. As you can see, this is a map viewer created with a content that just reduces to the minimum what is possible to include in a map. As we can see, we don't have any table of content. We don't have any catalog. Here, the user, the only thing that he can do is just logging in and use annotations and nothing else. So as I said, this is an example for a map that can be shown directly to the public. Another example instead here is a map that contains many of the plugins that you would normally see like in a MapStore map application. It is possible to open some of the layer settings. It is possible to zoom to the layers, and it's possible to consult a catalog. But probably for those that are a little bit more attentive or use MapStore more frequently, we can see that here we decided to exclude the search bar, because I don't know, for some example, you may want to offer this map to the public, but you don't want some of the user to use that tool. Well, you can make a context and provide it as a public map viewer. So as we talked, we already talked about the resources, types of resources on MapStore. Now let's go on and talk about the user and groups management. MapStore product comes with an internal system of users and user groups that would allow to restrict or grant access to the different resources that we've just talked about. And it could also create a pool of users and user groups connecting to an LDAP source. We had some of our customers that use that connection to connect to their Active Directory, Windows Active Directory repository. This is something that MapStore can plug in. So you cannot just create your own users or benefit for those that you would create manually, but you can source them from other sources using LDAP, for example. Moreover, MapStore also gives the possibility to integrate authentication and authorizations with GeoServer and GeoFence, which are GeoSolutions supported products, and providing an advanced and integrated security system for your geospatial data and a more granular control over what type of data the user can see or not. So that is made to be, again, plugged seamlessly into the MapStore authentication authorization workflow. Okay, so this slide is a bit trying to explain how it is possible to start for a developer customizing MapStore. As I said earlier, MapStore isn't just a product, but is a framework, and you can create your own application based on MapStore and decide the tools that you want to keep, lose, or customize according to your needs. We're not talking about context here. We are talking about making your own custom MapStore. So you can find all the resources online that you would require to get you started with the customizations of your application. So as it lists in here, you can customize the look and feel, you can create and replace pages, you can configure and create your own plugins. That's a very interesting function. Or you can replace the backend with your own. So in GeoSolution, we are constantly working to simplify the application updates and allow developers to focus on the customizations of their plugins. Online, you will be able to find all the documentation that you require to get you started customizing MapStore. And in any case, GeoSolutions can provide professional support for developers that would want to go down the path of developing their own MapStore, and we will be really happy to provide, because your ideas, as it happened, for example, in the example I showed you for the city of Brussels, may become the power of the next releases of MapStore. Okay, so here the list of more resources that you could find online. So the slides will be eventually given to you at the end of this presentation, so you can consult them directly if you wanted to. So an official demo, user documentation, development documentation, the official GitHub repo. If you want to start playing already with it. It's an open project. You can see YouTube videos that will take you through the main features as a user. You can decide to subscribe to the mailing list. And of course, we've got some training that we normally offer to our clients that is offered directly to you online for free, that you can start and get educated a little bit about MapStore. Right, so now it's time to talk about the specific features that were introduced with the release of 2022.02. So in the features that I'm going to talk about, we cover all the major and minor releases that were released across 2022, and we'll try to group them in a few slides. So it will cover, as you can see in here, the 2022, the two majors, 2022-01 and 2022-02, and all the minors. So you can see here the release dates, which they happened. So we are currently, the official one is currently the 2022-02-02, which has been released the 13th of December, just over a month ago. And main features that we want today to talk about, so main advancements we've done are about the support of 3D data. At the end of my presentation, there will be my colleague Stefano, that was the main developers for all the features that you would see in that I'm going to present. He will kind of take you through a short demo where you can see what MapStore can now do to support 3D data. So 3DTiles supports. 3DTiles are the open standards for massive heterogeneous 3D geospatial datasets, point clouds, buildings, photogrammetry, and vector data. MapStore can now support all these data types and display them in the same map, mixing the characteristics and peculiarity of each data type. So we provided a terrain layer that allows the customization of the elevation profile of the globe mesh in the Cesium 3D viewer. So in 2022-02, MapStore now supports 3 different types of terrain provider. So the first one is the Cesium ellipsoid terrain providers that does not contain any relief. Then as a terrain provider, we will support GeoServer WMS services that would offer terrain providers. The data is normally in BIL, DDS formats, and the extension has got to be installed by GeoServer. But as you can see in this example, MapStore is ready to support it. And then, of course, the Cesium terrain format. Again, another 3D feature that we introduced is the support of WFS vector layers. So the supports of WFS would enable for 3D a lot of the characteristics that you would normally expect in their WFS 2D counterpart. So if a WFS layer is displayed in 3D mode, it is possible to style the 3D layer directly in the map, as you would normally do with 2D data in MapStore. 3D WFS layers will support identify tool, which is get feature info, also called get feature info more technically. And we also provided a mechanism for a faster response for 3D vector layers. So we tested it and it is as fast as it is for 2D data. It is then possible to import vector layers from local files in the most common vector formats, like for example, GeoJSON and shapefile, and they will be directly displayed on the map and stylable as you would normally do with, 2D vector data. So like for like, same characteristics we have and same features we have for 2D, we imported them like for 3D, which is quite good. And these is another example of this portability of vector 3D data, because the styling of 3D data, as you can see, we twinned the WMS layer style to make it the same for 3D WFS. This is to give more options to the user and to let them find the way across the styling tool more easily. Specific to the 3D vector data, we introduce some dedicated symbolizers that apply specifically to 3D data. In the example that we can see in here, we can see how the main geometries, like the 3 geometries, are styled. So for those of you that already work with MapStore, wouldn't probably see any difference between these and the 2D data. So the first example, we have points. The second example, we have lines. And the third example, we have polygons. It's possible to kind of style them according to the attribute that they have in here and change the style, with these color pickers and other settings that is, as I said before, the same one that you would see in 2D data. Right, so more in detail, Identify tool, not only it was made available for both 3D tiles and 3D vector layers, but an extensive work has been done to make its performance faster and not to tamper with the general user experience. So, and we also provided an much easier method, much easier way for user to click on a 3D feature and get the associated attributes, which means that the click now would follow the camera orientation. So it's not always that immediate and always that simple to make it work in 3D. Well, we managed to get it done. So you would basically get a really good experience about identifier tools, because it will be responsive to the user clicks, but fast at the same time. So I invite you to try it as soon as you can. Performances. We improved a lot 3D performance, resulting to the cesium ability to resort to explicit rendering. So explicit rendering gives the ability to decide to the mapping engine to render or not render a certain 3D feature according to certain condition. For example, if the map is idle, the 3D renderer cesium will stop rendering. If the map tiles or if the camera orientation will not change, cesium will stop rendering the 3D features that are not visible in the viewports. Those things were happening before, and that kept a lot of performances down. But now we introduced explicit rendering in MapStore, and we can benefit for a much faster behavior of 3D map. Other options, settings options, as you can see in these examples, when you are in 3D view, you can click on the settings button, the cog in there, and the settings menu would be enriched by more, let's say, more 3D-ish characteristics. So, for example, it's possible to enable the atmosphere, and it's possible to enable fog, and it's also possible to enable depth tests. Depth test is a feature that allows to display more realistically 3D features over the underlying digital terrain model. Depth test calculates heights and compare them with the DTM. So if a certain feature is hidden by the terrain relief, for example, for a hill, depth test feature will hide it as well, and will make the 3D map even more real, as you would see like in real life. So that's another interesting feature that you can decide whether to apply or not to the map, because sometimes that feature might not be required. Right, so swifting away from 3D, let's talk about the more general features and improvements that were introduced with the version 2022, 01 and 02. So some of the core dependency were upgraded. This is to enable the most recent features of such libraries. As explained, for example, cesium, we applied most of the 3D new features because we upgraded to 1.90. But also, we also upgrade dependencies because security is also important. So we also upgrade Spring security to the latest version. So it is possible to say that MapStore is a safe application for most of the threats that are now present on the internet. Query parameters handling. So in MapStore, it is possible to customize some of the components of your map viewer directly with REST, utilizing REST requests. Before versions 2022, only GET requests could do that. For example, focus on a particular part of the map. Now it's possible to support post requests, and most importantly, query parameters are also supported by 3D mode. So Again, it isn't something that is immediately showable in here, but I invite you to have a look at the documentations while you got the slides. Further performance improvements regarded the reducing of the size of the MapStore bundle, which is in the latest official version 1.5 megabytes. And we also introduced the modular plugin loading mechanism that basically is a dynamic loading of plugins and extensions that will import those only when they are needed by the code and not always. So that again will reduce dramatically the bundle size and will improve performances. Print plugin, this is more a visual thing to show. So we included some features we included some more features in the print plugin. For example, it is now possible to select a custom coordinate system in the printed map, which might be different from the map viewer. It is also possible to choose different download file formats. So as opposed to before that on PDF was the only allowed, you can now print your own maps, download and print your own maps in JPEG and PNG formats in case you would need a raster source. And we also create a new plugin that shows the graticule on the map if it's needed. Another visual improvement that we introduced with version 2022 is the redesign of the sidebar that become like a styled toolbar. As you can see, for those of you that already work with MapStore, you can see that we narrow it down and we rationalized the location of the buttons. Another important feature another important characteristic that allows this feature is the possibility to have various tools all present and shown in the map at the same time. That wasn't possible before. So in this example, for example, you can see that the user opens the print plugin, and then secondly, the share plugin, and then thirdly, the measure plugin. So more space to the tools and more space in the map for the user to work on. Another visual characteristic, let's say, is the introduction of rationalized and improvement of mobile widget visualization. So in this example, I'm reducing the screen size and I am basically testing the responsiveness of MapStore, changing it from a desktop size to a potential tablet or a mobile size. As you can see, all the widgets are collapsed into just one widget window, and it's possible to scroll between them with this button that makes them slides like if you were a carousel or a slideshow. So all will be grouped into one single window, and it is now possible to have a look at the widgets even in mobile view, things that wasn't possible before. But again, I think it's a quite clever solution. Then GeoStories and dashboard enhancements. Now it is possible to group into one single map widget multiple maps, and it is possible to switch between them. So when we create a map widget, multiple maps can be selected for the same viewer in dashboards. If other widgets, like in this example, we got a bar chart widget, are connected to the map, when I select and switch between the map, you can see that the chart's underlying data will change accordingly, and a different setting and a different layout of the map widget is shown, as you can see in here, because the zoom of the map is different between the two. Another interesting feature about dashboards in GeoStories is the possibility to export them, as you can see in the example here. So as already happens with Maps resources, GeoStories and dashboard can be exported easily and ported and shared, because the format in which they are exported is JSON, which is quite a common format for porting data. Timeline, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, we applied improvements to the support of multidimensional data. In this case, is time. So time may come in different forms. It may be like an atomic time that represents just one date, but times can also be an interval, can have a start and an end date. So we improved the timeline component to cater for this type of interval data. So it is possible to show time geographic data that has the time dimension and has a start and an end date. As you can see, the bars that you see in the timeline component will represent the start and the end date. And all the features that were available for dots that were like, you know, atomic, let's say, let's call it atomic, but absolute data in the timeline before this improvement are ported now to the timeline. So as you can see in this example, it is possible to snap like that again, and you can snap the timeline to the caret, let's say, to the start or the end of each interval. It is possible to step forward and step back. It is possible to apply animations. Every single feature that we have available for the timeline single dates are now ported to time intervals. Feature snapping, again, another very interesting and needed features is the ability to snap features within editing mode. As you can see in this example, it's quite understandable. So you can enable it using the the feature grid component is called table of content. No, feature grid component, and it's possible to select the layer, which layer you want to snap to. It is possible to select which part of the geometry you want to snap to. It can be edge, can be vertex. Yeah, it is snapping after all. Again, a very, very fundamental feature that we introduced with 2022. As I said earlier, again, authorization and authentication in 2022-02, we started supporting a further authentication provider, which is OpenID. OpenID is an authentication protocol that allows users to log in with credential from other providers. In this example, we can see Google accounts or Keycloak. And another authentication provider, it is possible to build users and role repositories, and MapStore will be able to authenticate and authorize the logged in user according to the authentication and authorization rule that you would that other provider would offer. So MapStore is able to detect which is the user and assigning the role that you would normally assign it in your external repository. So Google in the example that you see here, but even Keycloak. Keycloak is an authorization provider that uses the OpenID protocol that is widely used in a lot of public sector and government administrations, and we successfully managed to plug it in as another further authentication provider for MapStore, and this characteristic, these features comes out of the box. Charts widgets. So we improved the stylings of bar and pie charts. It is now possible to classify even more those charts using a further attributes, which is not just the X and Y or for the charts, but using another attributes to customize them. And this will basically color code them. So further attributes can either be, like in the case that you can see in here, absolute attributes like strings. So the colors will change according to the matched strings, but also they can be numbers. So it is possible to decide ranges across data and color code those ranges, decide and set custom colors, and the charts will change accordingly. So we give even more possibility for you to visualize and make analysis with your geographical attributes. Okay, so what I've shown you so far were just a few of the upgrades and improvements that we introduced with 2022 MapStore. In this slide, we kind of group the others that we introduced with them, and I'm just going to go very quickly over them. For example, a really nice feature that we introduced is the ability to set domain sharding. Domain sharding is a method for spawning across different requests, let's say, so that tile data, especially tile data, can be loaded more quickly. It is possible to do control domain sharding now from single services in MapStore. It is possible to share 3D maps that would retain camera orientation and pitch. You can, of course, this is a benefit because when you share a 3D map, the user that you are going to share the map with would see the same map, not just the same layers, but the same, the same position that you would normally want to share the map. WMTS layers attributes can further customized attributions, sorry, not attributes. So credits that are that is possible also in Cesium as well. So credits that is possible to customize would include, for example, customize styles, make it bold, make it italic, and it's also possible to include hyperlinks. Resources can now delete it directly from within themselves. So for example, if you want to delete a map, you don't have to no longer do it like in the resource list as it happened before, but you can do it within the map. And URLs are automatically detected and converted as hyperlinks in the table, in the attribute table or feature grid component when you open it up. And much more. So I invite you to have a look at GitHub, where there is the releases sections where you can see one by one all the features that I've talked with and some others that we decided to left behind, not because we thought that they did not deserve attention, but just because we got, of course, constraints of time. Right, so now I think it's time for my colleague Stefano to take over, and he will talk you through about what's boils in the pot, what we have not yet released, but it will be part of the next releases of MapStore. Over to you, Stefano.
Thank you, Alessandro. Let me try to share the screen. If I cannot share the screen, I ask you to run the video before. If not, because I cannot start, I think you need to stop your presentation before. Let me try now. Yeah, I can. Let me know when you can see the screen, please.
We can.
Okay. I'm Stefano,
Yes.
and I'm a front-end developer at GeoSolutions and mainly working on the MapStore core. Now, I would like to showcase a short video that goes through some functionality that we just see, in particular the one related to the 3D. And this video will show the composition of map, adding 3D tiles and some vector layers that come from GeoJSON file. So let me run this and we'll talk over. So first of all, the first step is to adding a 3D tiles. In this case, we created a sample 3D tile of the city of Viareggio, where we located in a bucket to be hosted a static file and reachable through the MapStore instance. So we are adding from the catalog and targeting the tileset.json file. Here, as you can see, is loaded. It's a small portion of the city where we have only buildings, and these buildings are the 3D feature that we are going to stylize. The idea of this video is to show a small maps of the event. For example, an event that could be in the city. There is the Carnival of Viareggio next month, so we decided to create this small presentation around this, so the data is related to that topic. So here, for example, we are query the 3D tiles to see which content we can use to stylize, because the style editor, as you can see, allows to add multiple rules, and one could, for example, filter data through the height. So in this case, we are designed to show some data that goes over the 19 meters, and the other will be the normal color. So we can create multiple rules to display different information through the 3D data. Next step, we are starting to add the vector layers that could be added as WFS, but also as GeoJSON. In this case, we are using GeoJSON because we need small portion of the small polygons lines to showcase the styling features. Here we are going to change the style to highlight the area of the carnival. In this case, we can remove the outline, we can change the fill colors, so to highlight that and make this more visible instead to have the transparency that we had by default. And there is this functionality that allows you to choose if the polygon should be on top of the 3D tiles, only on the terrain, on both. So in this way, you can also classify the part that you prefer. In this case, we wanted only to classify the terrain data with the polygon. Next layer that to show a different style symbolizer is the line layer. This is the route of the event, and we are adding as a GeoJSON file. The data, if it's provided with information of the height, we could also see that it's not attached to the terrain, but it's floating because we apply a specific coordinate for the height. And as for the polygon, we can change the stroke color, we can change the size of the stroke, the width, and also the style. So we want a dashed line, and we are adding that to the geometry. The line could be also clamped to the ground, or if we prefer to keep that as the original height of the coordinates, so we can keep also in that case. So the style symbolizer allows to change also some characteristic of the geometry itself, not only the styling, but with the 3D style, the new 3D style vector visual style editor, we can also make some changes. We will see that some changes are also applied to the point symbolizer itself. That will be the next geometry that we go through. So as we had before with the line, we have the GeoJSON for a point. We have different point of interest. We are going to, as you can see, we have 3 types of symbolizer. The mark symbolizer are built-in well-known symbols that could be stylized as fill color and stroke. So we can decide, for example, to use the star symbol. Let's say that we want to highlight with this symbolizer one of the elements on the map, And for example, the station, the train station, we are starting to, let's say, change the size and find the correct dimension. We can also change the rotation. There is this functionality for the 3D that is the bring to front, that, as it said, bring to front the feature is even if it's hidden by some buildings, for example. So you always see that in as a first element. It is not behind other 3D features. And here we can filter and add a specific rule only for the train station, for example. This feature has the property type equal train station, so we can apply a style with that. Another symbolizer that we can use is the icon symbolizer for external graphics. You have an image that it's a symbol for a point that you want to use. Here we want to highlight the entrances of the events. So we created an image that is the symbol itself. You can see that it's increasing the size in the middle of the map. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 elements. We can use the bring to front functionality to make this more visible, even if it's behind some buildings. And finally, we can see that with 2 different type of symbolizer in the same type of layer, the same layer, we can add multiple rule and target with different symbolizer a specific feature. Here, another example, we want to use another image for another feature on the map. Here there is the clock tower, for example. We have created the image for the clock tower, and in this case, we can change the size, we can apply the rotation, we can use the bring to front, or as you can see, there is also the rule to change the DI reference. So if we want to change the height of this point, we could through this stylator. And as you can see, a different image has been used for representation of the tower. Finally, the last symbolizer that we can have and use in the version 2022-02 is the label symbolizer. And even for the symbolizer, we can decide to filter based on a property, selecting the label that we want to see. So a property that we want to use as label. Here there is the stage of the events, and we highlighted that. So this is a small example of the user composition on map to showcase what we saw through the presentation that Alessandro did before. Now, I would like also to continue with the presentation. I think I can on my side. Let me, or maybe Alessandro, could you show the slide again? If I stop.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course. Let me just,
so I can continue with the ongoing work that we.
Let me just go focus on that slide. So share screen, share. Right. So I think that you from here.
Yeah. Next slide. So as Alessandro said before, we worked on the improvement of performance on the 3D side through the 2022-02 major releases. And we want to continue in this direction, adding new feature to the 3D context, but also on other functionality on MapStore. For example, in the ongoing work that we are currently developing, one of the new feature that we are going to add is the possibility inside map to create views. Views are specific, let's say, scene that can focus on a topic using the content of a map. So you can navigate through different scenes that could be positioned in different location of the map, save those scenes, and then navigate through those. You can add a description of this scene, add a position, a navigation time that it's used when there is a transition between two scenes. Change layer visibility. So you have a set of layers in the map, and you can choose, okay, in this view, I make this layer visible as this other not. So this makes some interesting, let's say, I use the word story, but it's more like make this more expressive, the map, rather than have a static content that you need to navigate by yourself. So it's more like a guided navigation through the map. We have also additional option. Next slide, please. Specific for the 3D maps, there are the clipping of 3D tiles. We introduce clipping and mask, so we can highlight portion of 3D tiles, or we can remove part of 3D tiles. So we can make 3D model inside, or make different composition of the map. And we introduce also the globe transparencies, so we can see also something that it's underneath, I mean, underground or underwater. In this case, we make an example of the subway. So we can also use, as in a scene, I can make the globe transparency and another not. So I can have a comparison on what is on top of the ground and under the ground. Next slide. Then we introduce a new symbolizer specific for 3D map using a GLTF model, so 3D model instead of icon, marker, and label. We saw before in the video that we have 3 symbolizer. In the next and in going work next release, we will have 4 symbolizer. The 4th one will be a 3D model that be positioned, rotated, and created on top of the existing feature. Then we can also apply 2 points to all the 4 symbolizer 4 point leading line, so a line that connect the point to the ground. We notice that it's really useful to highlight things that are, I mean, to, for example, to highlight some with some label, some feature on the ground. It's really useful as a style option. Next slide. We introduced also the legend for WFS and vector layers. So now when you create a style with the style vector editor, you can add also a label. And with the label, we create a client side, a legend in the talk, similar to the one that we receive usually with a WMS layer. Next slide, please. We introduce support for measurement tool. We have the 3D environment that's its own way to measure. So we needed to introduce more more ways to measure things. We have the distance and area that are common and similar to the 2D one, but we had also the point coordinates to have a point with latitude, longitude, and altitude. Then we have the height from terrain, so get the distance from a point to the terrain. The angle, so be able to measure an angle also on the vertical surface, and to measure a slope. So this was introduced and integrated with the current environment of MapStore. Yeah, next, please. In the meanwhile, while we are going to develop this new feature, we are also investigating on improvement, because we noticed that are needed, in particular on some topic. For example, the terrain tiles, we are working and investigating on possible solution to speed up the loading. We are also investigating on the possibility to speed up or clipping, find a strategy to clip WFS and vector layer. When I mean clip, in this case, tiling, so to show only the feature visible on the map and avoid an overload of feature on the map. And finally, also find alternative solutions that we are currently researching to be integrated in the capabilities of MapStore. So we are looking around on different specifications to understand which one could be the best fit for MapStore to represent 3D features. Next slide. We talk a lot about 3D, but here there is also improvement through the dashboard. We improve the layout itself, but also the possibility to switch and change charts, so have multiple charts in the same widget. We saw before that we had this option for maps, and now there is also this option for charts. Next. And in general, we are going also to improve some part of the configuration. We noticed some improvement that could be done through the WMTS layer configuration to make that more self-contained and able also to read some specific information through the layer. So in the next releases, we will go to introduce also improvements on this side. Probably things that the last one, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think so. So thank you so much, Alessandro and Stefano.
Thank you
for your really good presentation. And here in this slide, you can see basically the links, okay, to our user guide and developer guide available online, where you can basically understand and more on MapStore functionalities, what MapStore is, what MapStore does. And it is important to say that what's presented now by Stefano in the ongoing work, basically, with the exception of the investigation that is basically the investigation, I mean, on alternative loading strategies and different approaches to speed up the loading of terrain tiles. Basically, all of the other things will be available in the next measure release, the 2023-01 release, that will be available in more or less 2 months. Okay. So I think we can proceed with the question and answers session. I'm sorry, guys, but I had to join again the call here, the webinar, because I had a connection issue. So I'm not able to see all the old questions. So I'm only able to see the last 4. So maybe you can, one of you guys can drive this and show the questions basically, so that we can answer.
I am showing them now. I'm not sure if you all see them.
No, I'm seeing the slides basically.
I'm not really sure why you can't. Do you see them, Stefano?
Yeah, I can see on my side. I think I can read them and
yes, maybe
yes,
better.
please.
Yeah.
The first one, can your team please update GeoNode docs for using GeoNode on Windows?
But well, I think it is something that we can do, especially if it is something is needed to be improved for this purpose. I mean, so the usual channels like the mailing list and GitHub issues can be used to report any issues on this, in my opinion. So feel free to do that if needed.
Next one, 200 customers worldwide for all of 4 main products or just for MapStore? Customer that are paying for one, should I, because there are 3 questions in the same block, so maybe I can go one by one. So for all of 4,
yeah, please read all of them, please.
Okay, 200 customers worldwide for all 4 main products or just for MapStore? Customers that are paying for one or more services provided by GeoSolutions?
Oh, well, not only involving MapStore, but also our products like GeoServer, GeoNode, and GeoNetwork, and services around. So we are not talking only about MapStore, of course. Next question.
Next. What are the differences between GeoNode and MapStore? Can MapStore do everything that GeoNode does, or it's something different?
Well, MapStore and GeoNode aren't the same thing. While GeoNode is a WebGIS platform to manage spatial data infrastructures, MapStore has been introduced as a WebGIS viewer for GeoNode contents. Okay.
I'm going to the next one. Integer carousel, GeoStory type. Would it possible to simply add a point layer and have automatically all the point created in the GeoCarousel?
Well, not yet, but it is something that can be implemented, and it is something we have already in mind to improve the tool. I mean, looking also for contributions, if any. Okay, but it is in generally it is generally something that we have already discussed. Okay, it is something that will be interesting to do. Yeah.
Are there tutorials more specific to build dynamic dashboard? Thanks.
Sorry, can you please
repeat? Are there tutorials more specific to build dynamic dashboards?
Not really clear to me this question, but in the online document, if the online documentation is the subject, basically I can say that we have discussed the possibility to improve our online documentation material for these things. For example, also for the 3D data and things like that. But anyway, in our online documentation are currently explaining basically all the components that are involved in a dashboard, basically, and how they are working and how they can be used. There are not anyway specific tutorials on how a widget can be configured, an overall widget considering a specific context of use, for example, can be configured. But it is something that effectively could be introduced as a tutorial or training material for our online documentation. So keep a kind of context of use, okay, and a kind of application field, and build a dashboard on top of it.
Next one. An option to block to reset of the password by the user could be useful when these are managed by admin and have to be recovered or changed. So I think it's more a suggestion, an option to block the reset of the password by the user.
That could be an interesting enhancement indeed. Yeah. Thank you. You guys anyway are always able to contact us on the mailing list, or maybe open new issue to propose your idea of enhancements for MapStore. So yeah, that could be a good enhancement. Yeah.
Okay, next one. I'm also interested in understanding whether MapStore can allow a user to explore a multidimensional raster data cube, for instance, managed by means of Rastaman. I don't know if I read it correctly.
I've not direct experience of Rastaman. As far as I know, I can say there have been no implementation until now so far concerning the MapStore ecosystem that are released to that are related to data cubes. So it could be interesting to start a discussion in mailing list, in my opinion, about that topic.
Okay. Are hexagonal grids in the application roadmap or already available?
No, not yet.
Usually, our users are a bit off having to center the map part that they want to print using the background map outside of the print window. Would it be possible to adjust the printed map extend inside the print preview?
If I understood correctly, not yet.
Sorry, no, it's not possible.
No, it is not possible now. What is possible now is the ability basically to enable. There is an option basically that can be used, okay, to be able to change the map scale in the preview. Okay, so that's what you can do now. But it is not possible to directly pan the preview map or things like that. Only change the scale, so having a custom scale for the preview if you enable that option and if you configure that functionality, of course.
About the printing plugin, assuming you have vector data, is it possible to export vector PDF?
Yeah. I mean, it is possible to include vector layers in the map, like importing vector files or creating annotations and print them in the final. Print them to be able in the final PDF. I mean,
I think it's related to the content of the PDF. It's a vector. I think right now it's an image at the end inside the PDF.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The contents of the PDF are completely managed by the printing engine. So it depends on the data. Yeah. Basically, that engine is including in the final PDF. But yes, it is an image, combination of multiple images inside the PDF.
Next one. Hello. Can I use the 3D mode with timeline plugin? I can answer. Currently,
can you
use the 3D mode with the timeline plugin. Currently, it's not possible. It's not possible because we need to re-enable it's not enabled by default, and it's some work to be included in the 3D view. So currently, it's not enabled. Next one. Are there any solution for an active clustering when write? I don't know if I get this.
Sorry, can you
because are there any solution for an active clustering and in parentheses when write?
Well, I assume you mean a cluster of MapStore. We usually don't deploy cluster of MapStore, therefore there aren't solution available in our online documentation at the moment that we can share. We never had the need to do that so far. So what we usually put in cluster as part of our installations is GeoServer. We have quite advanced online training documentation that explain about clustering strategies we are using and we are suggesting for GeoServer, so you can easily find it online.
Okay. Next one. Will different types of 3D geometries be supported while displaying buildings, for example, spheres, pyramids, or domes?
But I think you have already mentioned something about this before. We have worked to include support for 3D models, for example, like GLTF1, for example, as symbolizers inside the style editor for vector features. So you mentioned that before. So probably you have already answered it during the presentation.
Okay. How does MapStore works together with GeoServer layers?
Well, MapStore is interacting with GeoServer through the OGC standards. So basically, WFS, WMS, WMTS, and so on. Okay, so it is possible to connect MapStore through this to GeoServer through these standards using the catalog tool, where you can basically define the source of your data for different kind of service types, so WFS, WMS, and so on. Okay, so it is well explained in our online documentation.
First of all, thank you very much, and you have done a really great work. My question is that I have some 3D tiles in my asset in Cesium Ion, and I want to integrate them in MapStore.
Well, I think you are the good guy to answer to this. I don't think it is easily possible as far as we have seen basically during our developments last year.
Yeah, I think here because I think the question refers to some assets created through the online Cesium Ion platform. I think the main issue right now that's MapStore does not have a direct way to integrate the. I mean, needs some development also to integrate the access token needed for that.
Yeah.
So we need further implementation improvement in MapStore to be able to access these kind of assets, because those are related to the Ion ecosystem, and we need to understand if it's possible to create this connection. So it needs more work on the 3DTiles implementation done in MapStore. Another question. Great work. Are tooltips available for buttons? Are they customizable?
Well, thank you so much to appreciate basically our work and our product, first of all. And then, do you want to answer to this, Stefano?
I mean, most of the buttons that are inside MapStore, in some cases have the ID for tooltips related to a translations. So the translation in MapStore in the documentation is described that you can override those translation file. So technically it's possible. Here the real question is which buttons we are referring to, and if it's something that you need to change through development or only configuration. So the answer could be yes, if you need only to change the translation itself, because the file could be, you can override those. If are some specific button, because sometimes there are some situation that some solutions are coded, in that case, maybe need a bit of development. But most of the cases with the translation, it's possible to override existing tooltips. Next one. First of all, thank you very much.
I think this is the same of before.
Okay. So yeah, I do not. Sorry. Here, thank you for the answer. Happy to know you think about it. So this is related to a previous question.
Yeah, maybe.
There are other. Thank you. Let me go in the next one. Can non-geodata tabular be included into a dashboard with MapStore?
Well, as I said before, MapStore is leveraging OGC services. So basically, you can include data in your widgets by connecting MapStore, by connecting them to an OGC service. So that's the way data can be published on GeoServer, and so that are mainly referring usually referring geospatial data, but it is not effectively needed. Okay, so we can like application like GeoServer can also publish geometryless data, so it should be possible. It is possible.
Are there gonna be a fix for issue bug in older version, or always we need to upgrade?
Well, usually older version are not under maintenance. Okay, if not for specific reasons or needs for our clients. Okay, but the official versions are usually not under maintenance. So what you can do is to, I mean, fork your own downstream project, or basically sorry, you can basically, let me reformulate. What you can do is to basically fork MapStore. It is depending on how you are managing the your project, but a way, of course, could be to provide your own fix autonomously. Otherwise, you have to upgrade to a new version. We usually across different releases, we usually publish all the migration guidelines that are needed for that process.
And next question, is it possible to permanently insert a custom image format logo in the MapStore maps?
Custom image format logo. A kind of watermark or things like that for your brand or kind of organization logo, things like that, I think. Or
I think so.
It is possible. For example, for the municipality of Genova, we have made a plugin, a dedicated plugin for this that shows a small image in the middle bottom of the screen of the viewport, basically.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm here. Let me. Okay, done. I'm here. Okay. Are there any plans? I don't know if I read this. Are there any plans on extending the classification possibilities on lines, example multi-line, like it was in bar and pie charts? Thank you.
We have discussed recently about an implementation of a multi-line charts, okay, for our widgets. And these include basically the possibility to color them differently and things like that. But it is not yet in our roadmap. Okay, so I think that there will be interesting announcements on widgets and charts, especially in 2023. Okay, but it is something that we have still to put in plan for the 2 second quarters of this year.
Okay. It is already possible to add filters to dynamic dashboards.
It is possible to add filter to the we have a system that allows you to filter data in your widgets when they are connected together. You have different strategies to do that. One of the most interesting one is using the tabular widget, the table widget, okay, where you can basically enable, where you can basically connect other widgets to this and when you do that, the table widget can be used to filter the same data set in other widgets like maps and charts. Okay, so you can have a table, what we call parent table, basically, that can drive that kind of filtering across different connected widgets. Okay, you can obviously, as part of the first implementation we have provided in the past, you have, of course, able to connect your widgets to the map one, okay, and so that doing that all the widgets connected to the map are filtered basically using the visualized extent of the map widget. I mean.
Next question. Do you have experience with maximum values? How many users work with MapStore at the same time at your customers?
Do you have an idea on how to answer to this, Stefano? Maximum values for what? I don't understand basically.
The question, because the question is how many users work with MapStore at the same time at your customers?
Well, we haven't statistics available, so I cannot provide a precise number, but we can say that some of our MapStore instances are exposed for public municipalities, okay, and so they are available, and they can be accessible by citizens. So especially in case of elections, for example, or for basically touristics use cases, for example. So we can expect usually a lot of clients accessing MapStore at the same time in that particular context.
Going to the next one. Okay, are there a lot of changes between 2021-0202 and this last one? Or would it be quite easy to port or version from this version to the last one? I think it's a custom version we are talking about.
Probably, yeah, probably. Yeah, there are a lot of changes between these two versions, especially because in 2022 we have included a lot of peculiar enhancements and updates, mainly involving the modular plugin and mainly involving both the functionalities, but also the UI and the look and feel. So let's think about, for example, the sidebar that brought some changes on the layout. Okay, so especially if you have custom plugins, you may need to update them accordingly. But we have also included the modular plugin concepts basically for performance reasons, to enhance the product performances in general by improving the loading page speed. And it can be also, it brought basically relevant changes on the code base, so that could be challenging to update from these two versions. But anyway, don't worry, because we as part of our guidelines, so I mean it is a good jump, okay, but in our guidelines basically we have provided all the steps that you need to follow, okay, to move from a version to another. So all relevant things that are that have been included for the 2022 series basically are reported them with a step-by-step guide for the update from another version.
There's some feedback, and sorry if you already told it, but is it possible to display several layers in MapStore and put dynamic filter on them as a widget? It's possible
yeah,
I think it's Map Viewer, I think.
It is possible to display several layers in MapStore and put dynamic filter on them as widgets. it is possible to publish layers in your map on your dashboard, and it is possible to filter data you publish.
I think it's for dashboard, because after there is a for dashboard.
For dashboard. Yeah. When you create a widget is built on top of a layer, basically of a layer data, and you, as part of the settings that you can manage, there is also the possibility to filter them, as well as dynamically filter widgets, as I have explained before, by connecting them to table 1 or to the map widget.
It's done. Next one. I'm new in the sector. Where do you upload the file with 3D geometries to be shown on MapStore? Can you go directly from PostGIS GeoServer to MapStore?
Well, at the moment, as a requirements, we only ask to make them available online, but we are not serving them, as you mentioned, in PostGIS GeoServer, things like that.
For example, For example, 3DTiles are static files, so could be hosted as a static file, and the important part that usually the structure has a tileset JSON file that could be accessible by MapStore. So if a MapStore can access that endpoint, those are being rendered in MapStore. The same thing for the model GLTF file to represent some model that you can use as symbolizer in the next version. Same thing, so that should be hosted somewhere in a static file and reachable by MapStore. I think this is done. Dashboard. Okay, can I use my QGIS styling in MapStore? Is there a plugin, or do I need to install QGIS server?
Well, for the styling, MapStore is is based on GeoServer, essentially based on GeoServer REST APIs. Okay, so it is effectively compatible with it. QGIS styling is not per se, as far as I know, of course, fully compatible with the GeoServer SLD. So I mean, for what concerns specific styling options, I mean, so there could not be a one-by-one correspondence in every cases. Okay, so you just need to try. But this means that you need to have a GeoServer behind, otherwise MapStore cannot to use basically the MapStore style editor, I mean.
Yeah, maybe an option, a test that could be done is exporting the SLD from the QGIS.
Yeah.
And then try with the visual style editor of MapStore importing and that, and see if the rule that are inside the QGIS and translated from the QGIS style to the SLD are compatible with the one that we expect. Next one, does MapStore combine well with a containerized approach?
Yes.
Kubernetes?
Yes, it is basically one kind of installations we usually do. So.
Okay. Can you give an idea of WPS capability in MapStore?
WPS capability. MapStore is using the WPS for certain tools. So it's leveraging basically on the WPS service for certain tools. For example, the attribute table, the
download as well.
The export tool and the query tool. In the case of the export tool, for example, you can use it as a tool connected with the WPS download extensions, okay, installed in GeoServer, okay, to export and download asynchronously data published on GeoServer that you have loaded in the MapStore map, okay. Otherwise, you can use the WPS in MapStore for the query tool, for example, where we have an option to for the autocomplete option. In the query form, okay. And the same for the attribute table, so things like that.
Next one. I have a 3D tile and I put it in a file called 3D. So when in the catalog, I put the URL, always like localhost 8080 3DTiles.json, I got a message which say invite URL. Thank you so much. I'm guessing this, I try to answer. I am not sure because we need to see the interaction there, but probably it's done. It's because of the HTTPS, HTTP interaction. There is a validation inside MapStore right now that it's preventing some HTTP to don't have a mixed content error. So probably it's that. Anyway, I would suggest to try maybe in the mailing list with the specific use case and some step to reproduce. So maybe you can give an answer on that. Here there's a feedback from Gregory from the Brew GIS team. They say that they have 1,000 users a day.
I saw it. Yeah.
So peak time we have 25 at the same time.
Good.
Okay, I think this last question. Is it possible to get an account for uploading 3D city mesh model for research purpose? Purpose. Also get account for uploading 3D city mesh model.
Is it supposed to get an account for uploading? If you mean to upload your 3D city mesh, it is not possible on our online instances. Also because it is not a purpose of MapStore. So in MapStore you can connect data from external services or online services like we have on our online resources for 3D tiles, as we have explained before. I don't know if I have answered to your question, but
Okay, I think that is the last one because the other are some feedback.
I saw a lot of appreciations basically on our product and framework. So I would like to thank you guys, all of you guys, for this. And we are working, usually we are working hard in order to try to provide a reliable and stable product, okay? Not only to enrich it with additional features and functionalities, okay? So thank you so much. I think we have done, Ryan. I don't think we have other questions here, so.
Excellent. Thank you, Alessandro, Tobia, and Stefano for a great presentation. If there are additional questions, please contact us anytime. I want to thank everybody for attending today. Stay tuned to future webinars, not only on MapStore, but also on GeoServer and the other products that we support. I want to wish everybody a good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're logging in from, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar in our webinar series.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.